Here's a pretty awesome property. This is a video that we've been kind of looking forward to doing for a while, the intro video for this tract. This is tract 1 at the Merrimack project in Dent County, Missouri. Directly borders the National Forest along its entire west side, so awesome property. Borders a county road along its east side, so the access to the property is good all year round, which is fantastic. The reason we had not put this property on the market yet is that a couple of the guys had specifically wanted to use this for hunting. They had talked about kind of clearing a driveway. When I say the guys, I mean some of the guys that work for us. They wanted to use it for deer hunting, possibly turkey hunting, and then also had planned to kind of put in a driveway or a trail coming off the county road at the east side and heading back to the west to a couple of nice spots they had picked out on the west side of the property. And they did hunt it. Went deer hunting up there. They said they did really well, actually. Turned down quite a few good size deer, kind of waiting for the big one to come, and missed the shot at the big one, but still did really well. They saw deer on the property. They saw deer in the National Forest. They had a great time. They decided to go ahead and grab a different property, which was right by one of the guys' houses, and they're going to use that for hunting for the next few years. So we have decided to go ahead and put this one on the website and give somebody else a chance to use it and enjoy it. The Merrimack project is a very private, very small rural development. There are only 9 or 10 tracts out here. This is tract 1. It sits at the north side of the Merrimack project. So the tracts go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. as you go south or down as we look at this. So if you're coming from Salem, Missouri, coming this direction and heading south, tract 1 will be the first property you see. It will be on the west side of the road, which will be the right side if you're coming from the north, from up here. I'm not sure if we want to zoom out or zoom in. As you look at the kind of the outline of the property, it looks a little interesting because it gets fairly long on the east side, but it does have about 40 feet of actual direct frontage on the county road. And let's zoom in and look at that. Whoops. And it's one of the easier tracts actually to locate. Whoops. MapRight's going a little haywire on us. Because as you come in from the north on County Road 560, you'll see this meadow to the north. And then once you get to the south side of the meadow, you'll see a fence line. And that fence line essentially is the north line of tract 1. Which makes it pretty easy to find. So actually you'll see a little, well, it's been months since we've been out there, but there was a little yellow survey pin right by the corner post of the fence. So at the Merrimack project, the individual tracts have not been surveyed, but kind of the exterior boundaries were surveyed before we purchased the acreage. And so in this case, since the north side of tract 1 is also the north side of the Merrimack, we did see that survey marker there. There's probably one on the northwest side as well. I don't know if we poked around and found that or not. But the reason that the north line kind of meanders a bit is because it does follow an existing fence line that's right there. So in this case, it makes it super easy to see, where the north side of your property is because there will be it's an older fence, but it is a fence that I believe is in use. I think there are cattle on this north side, so it's very apparent when you see it. So that makes it super easy. So the guys were just going to open up a little driveway into the property. They had walked it several times. They picked out some good spots. They kind of and they do driveways and stuff like that for us all the time. And they figured with 2 of them, it would take them probably 2 days. 2 to 3 days to kind of do it by hand, where they could get back in and park a vehicle well off the road and then take either a 4-wheeler or go on foot way back to the west side of the property. In fact, I think when they were showing it, they kind of had a plan to go back here back into kind of the big, thicker timber where it starts to get quite a bit wider. And they're going to set up a site there and then do some trails and whatnot going back to the west side where it gets quite a bit wider. And then obviously the National Forest was on their radar too, as far as easy access to that. So, I mean, that's one of the things that makes these tracks so special. You can have your private acreage, kind of do your thing, hunting, camping, potentially building, depending on what you want to do in your time frame. But then you've got direct access into thousands and thousands of acres of public land with the Mark Twain National Forest right there. So as we look at this map, the MapRight map, we've got the public land layer turned on. And so it's showing the National Forest highlighted in green. And it gets kind of funky as we zoom out, but it's going to show the National Forest really well. So you can still see Tract 1. You've got your own private 6 acres, but you literally directly border all of this National Forest. And it's not a situation where you have to go and buy a day pass or anything like that. You just go right in and use it. It's National Forest, so it's open for public usage. A lot of these areas in the Ozarks, this one in particular, you won't see many people in the National Forest because it's not a heavily populated area. So like when our guys were out there hunting, they went all over the place during deer season in the National Forest, and they rarely, if ever, saw anyone else, just because there is so much National Forest and it's not a heavily populated area. So it's low use, which is fantastic. Another gigantic bonus for all the tracks at the Merrimack Project, but specifically for Tract 1, is there happens to be a power line just off the west side here, which begins kind of at the ranch to the north and then goes southwesterly down through the National Forest. So in addition to having an extremely rare property that borders the National Forest and having county road frontage, you've actually got power within just a few feet of Tract 1. And as we mentioned earlier, it's great for all the tracts to have power nearby, but it just about corners up to Tract 1. So, I mean, you're just a few feet from that power line, which is potentially very nice. If you do want to get power onto the property, you'd have to talk to the power company to get details on that. But, I mean, in general, the closer the better, and that power is really close to the property. So once we did zoom in, what I'd like to show you, and we mentioned we're on MapRight. This is the interactive map. You'll find a very similar map, possibly the identical map, within the listing page for this property. And you can do all the stuff that we're doing right now. You can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can move it around. This map, we use the paid version because we're creating maps, but the free version has quite a few features as well. So, I mean, in addition to doing all this stuff we're doing, I don't know if you'll see this on screen, but over to the left, we can kind of change the base layers. So we could go to a Google map if we want to do that. And it's fun to change the base layers because often the aerial photos were taken at different times of the year. So this Google map was clearly going into fall or more likely going into winter. Looks like pretty much all the trees have lost their color. The green trees you see are likely pine trees, possibly cedar, but a lot of pine trees in this area, beautiful large pines on many of the tracts. And judging by the kind of the aerial here, there's some nice pine groves on this property as well. We'll have to take a look at the drone video and the ground video to kind of see that. So you should be able to kind of change the base layers. Infrared layer is cool, kind of sci-fi looking. Infrared layer for us has always been useful for seeing wooded areas versus open areas. So when you're looking like at the neighbor to the north, I mean, you can tell where that meadow is with or without infrared. But as you get down into some of the wooded areas, like say toward the west side here, having that infrared really makes the open areas kind of pop out. So like for instance, on this property on Tract 1, we can see that it kind of looks like there's a kind of a natural open area here toward the west side, almost the northwest side. That's just one of the things that, the infrared infrared layer, there we go, is useful for. We can go to a topo map, which will show the approximate topography of the land and kind of how the ground lays. A little confusing on this tract especially, but having kind of, since we've been out there, we've seen this, we can compare it to the topo map, and as we look at this, we'll kind of tell you the tale of how this is situated, which is really nicely, actually. It's essentially the highest on the east side by the county road. As you go westerly, it's sloping down, but if you look at the distance between these contour lines, that indicates it's quite level. So although it does have it's trending downwards, I guess, as you go west, it is just not sloping very much until you get several hundred feet back in, probably 500, 600, 700 feet back in, and then you've got kind of this little mini valley. Actually, there's according to the topo, a tiny little creek that starts there and flows to the south. So that's going to be the low point on the property. You'll cross that little mini valley. It rises back up fairly gradually, levels off in about the middle, and that's probably why those guys were talking about doing some kind of campsite or building site, roughly there. And then as you go westerly, it kind of goes fairly gently. It goes down, up again. And then as you get right to the national forest, it's kind of sloping, kind of trending downwards again. But if we were to back up a little bit and you look at the contour lines for the rest of the area, essentially the quickest way to explain a topo map is when there are a lot of lines or the lines are close, that indicates steepness. When the lines are further apart, so there are fewer lines, that indicates flatness. So look at the national forest here off to the east. Look at how those lines are stacked almost on top of one another. That's very steep, hills and hollers. Same thing as you look to the west for the most part. This area, the Merrimack Project, and specifically to the north where that neighboring ranch is, that's extremely flat. And that's likely why that was turned into a productive ranch, a couple hundred years ago. It was some of the best land in the area. And that continues as you go south into the Merrimack. So especially going from the county road, the county roads were generally built on some of the most level ground to minimize maintenance on the county road, and that appears to be the case here. So from that county road, as you go west, sloping down, but very, very gradually, the low point is going to be this little valley area, rises up, levels off, and then kind of generally down, up, but nothing that we would call steep. There might be a little steepness as you go down to the middle of this valley area. We'd have to walk that to see. On the topo map, on this map, on a lot of them, the contour lines are indicating an elevation change of either 10 feet or 20 feet between two lines. This map, we'll have to get a little more info here. Okay, so on this line, the contour lines are indicating a total change of 20 feet. So as you look at the darkened lines, every fifth line on this map will be a darkened line, and that will be a total 100-foot change. So if we go, say, across the road over here into the forest, national forest, toward the bottom of this valley, you can see 1,200. That's 1,200 feet above sea level. If we then count the lines moving away, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we've got another thick line. That's going to be the 1,300 foot contour line above sea level. As we go up from there, we've got 1,320, 1,340. So here's 1,340. Follow that around to the other side of the road. It's still 1,340. But this is going to be the kind of the high point right here. So the east side of the property is sort of the high point for the area. So now it's trending downwards. So from 1,340 down to 1,320 and then 1,300 feet above sea level where that darker line is. So, I mean, you can see a total 20-foot drop over several hundred feet is not much of a slope. Then the lines get quite a bit closer as you get toward this valley area, so that is steeper, and then rising back up, et cetera, et cetera. So very usable property. I mean, you've got enough slope to make it interesting, but you've got enough level area that you've got quite a few potential sites. I think we have somewhere a short video of part of the west side of the property. I think it's the extreme west part where it is sloped down a little bit. But looking at the topo map, this large area here toward the west, that could potentially be a nice spot for a super private cabin or campsite. You're just a few feet. I mean, you'd be looking almost into the national forest if you built it there. Why don't we go to an aerial map? Oh, and look at the tree cover. That's fantastic. So heavily wooded. What a gorgeous, gorgeous spot that would be. I mean, you'd be a couple thousand feet off the road, close to half a mile off the road, just a few feet from the national forest, a few feet from the power line, which could be very convenient if you ever need power. But I mean, you've got a lot of options. So awesome for hunting, for camping. Certainly would be buildable, subject to the basic property covenants, and you can see all that in the listing page. What didn't we cover here? We could zoom way out and show you the headwaters of the Merrimack River, which are just a little less than 2 miles north of this property. Merrimack starts out small, like all rivers, and then gets huge and flows up to the north and then northeast and kind of skirts the city of St. Louis before it finally hits the Mississippi. But great area. County seat for Dent County is Salem, Missouri. And let's zoom out a little bit and show you where Salem is. We won't go into too much detail as far as directions because you can look at the listing page. We'll have those kind of written out for you. But, oh, this is fun. So we went to called the street map layer, which is a simplified layer on MapRight. And since we have the layer on for public land, the areas that are colored are going to be public land. So these green areas are the national forest. And I mean, you can see the tens of thousands of acres that border this property. I mean, you could literally spend a lifetime venturing from this property into the national forest and not see all of it. But then also we've got, say, this brown area down here. So where the green is going to be national forest, the brown area is more likely state conservation land, which is very similar to national forest as far as public usage. The purple area that you see, that's pretty special. That's the Ozark National Scenic Riverway, which was, I believe, one of the very first designated national lands, basically. And it encompasses most of the Jacks Fork River and I believe the Current River, maybe the 11 Point River. So you can see all that the purple there. I mean, that is fantastic fishing and floating and public usage there. The Merrimack River is as well. And as we mentioned, that the headwaters are basically not even 2 miles north of the property. Zooming out a little further, just to kind of show you where this is within the state of Missouri. So I can't really see the actual property, but you can see that whitish cluster. That's right where that property is. That's kind of all the text that's jumbled together once we zoomed out. But as you look up to the north, you've got Rolla. I-44 is going to be the major highway through kind of the south central part of Missouri. And 44 connects St. Louis going southwesterly down to Springfield and then cuts west from there. So I mean, heart of the Ozarks, but you can still get here from several major airports in just, a matter of a few hours. Obviously, St. Louis has numerous flights, but Springfield does as well. South of Springfield, you've got Branson, which has an airport. There are a lot of smaller airports. Poplar Bluff likely has one. Cape Girardeau likely has one. I mean, you've just got a lot going on. Lake of the Ozarks is up here to the northwest. Awesome location. I mean, you could fly into St. Louis or Springfield and rent a car and, be on your property same day. So pretty fantastic deal. We spend, 7 days a week for the last couple decades looking for land just like this. And sometimes people get a hold of us and they say, hey, where do you find all this property that, borders the national forest? And it's like, well, it looks like we have a lot, but really we're looking at thousands and thousands and thousands of properties, and we've had just a handful over the year, just a very, small number of projects that actually border the national forest, especially that have road frontage and border the national forest. I mean, this is one of only, well, fewer than 5 that I can think of that would have county road frontage and border the national forest. This one has that power line right near it to boot. It's got beautiful timber. There's just a lot going for this property. So a lot of the rest of the country, the cat's out of the bag on buying a property that borders public land. We've seen it in different states, and it's kind of the idea is starting to filter into everybody's mind, where yeah, you can buy 400 acres. You can, maybe team up with some of your buddies and buy 4 or 5, 800, 1,000 acres. But that can be a hardship for just about everybody we know. I mean, that's a huge payment. That's a huge cash outlay. That's a whole lot of taxes and everything else. Or you can get 5, 6 acres that borders the national forest, and you've got direct access into all that land. You can set up your own camp, your own permanent kind of cool area on your property, and you can venture into that national forest, and you can get to know it. You can find the good spots, and then when the hunting season rolls around, you already know the pattern of the wildlife. You have your ideas on where they're going to be. So yeah, people do come in from out of state to hunt the national forest around deer season, around turkey season, but they haven't been scouting it because they don't have a property right there where they can, at their leisure, kind of check out the wildlife patterns and figure out which deer is going to be where roughly on opening morning and throughout the rest of the season. So for that, I mean, for recreation, for just hiking and exploring and trail riding and the rivers and creeks, I mean, oh my gosh, it's like having a several thousand acre park in your backyard. So yeah, pretty awesome. We can talk about that for hours probably, but we're pumped about any of these tracks. We think track 1 is super cool with the power nearby, with the potential for a long private driveway, all that good stuff. Beautiful, beautiful timber on it. Check out the drone video as well. So that'll be on the listing page. But yeah, this was going to be a short video, and there is no timer running right now, but I'm thinking we went pretty long. So if you have any questions, just let us know. You'll find our contact information on the video or at our website, obviously. And yeah, owner finance land in the Ozarks. Top quality stuff. So we would love to hear from you.